The sky was just beginning to lighten, a pale, fragile dawn over the Sumy region of northeastern Ukraine. It was 6:17 in the morning, May 17, 2025. A minibus, filled with hope and the everyday dreams of ordinary people, rumbled down a road near Bilopelia. They were headed for Sumy, a city clinging to normalcy on the edge of a war zone. Suddenly, the sky roared. A deafening explosion ripped through the morning calm. The drone strike was precise, merciless, and utterly indiscriminate. The world rushed back into focus in a horrifying tableau of fire, twisted metal, and screams. 9 souls on their way to work, to school, to life, were extinguished in a flash of violence. 4 others clung to life, their bodies broken, their futures uncertain. The world would soon learn that among the dead were a family, a father, a mother, and their young daughter, their dreams of a future together incinerated in a heartbeat. The air was thick with the stench of burning metal and the coppery tang of blood. First responders, hardened by months of relentless conflict, fought back tears as they pulled bodies from the wreckage. Each lifeless form a testament to the savage absurdity of war. The world watched in horror, the images beamed across the globe, a stark reminder of the human cost of a conflict that seemed to have no end. News of the massacre spread like wildfire. Ukrainians, already reeling from years of conflict, reacted with a mixture of grief and fury. This wasn't a military target, it was a civilian bus. Mothers, fathers, children, their lives deemed expendable in Russia's brutal campaign. President Zelenskyy, his face etched with the weariness of a leader carrying the weight of his nation's suffering, addressed the world just hours later. His voice, normally a beacon of resilience and hope, shook with barely suppressed rage. He called the attack a cynical war crime, a grotesque act of terrorism that laid bare the emptiness of Russia's promises and the hollowness of their commitment to peace. He demanded immediate and crippling sanctions against Russia, a tightening of the noose that would force them to confront the consequences of their actions. International condemnation was swift and furious. World leaders lined up to denounce the attack, their words ringing with a familiar and frustrating impotence. The United States, through a spokesperson for President Trump, expressed deep concern and promised a firm response. The European Union vowed to explore all options to hold Russia accountable. But for the families of the dead, for the survivors forever scarred by the horrors they witnessed, words rang hollow. They demanded action, not pronouncements, justice, not platitudes. The Kremlin, as they had done so many times before, resorted to a familiar script of denial and deflection. Their spokespeople, their faces carefully composed, their voices devoid of emotion, trotted out the well-worn lines. It was a regrettable incident, they said, but the bus was in a military staging area. It was carrying Ukrainian military personnel, they insisted, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. The drone strike was justified, they argued, part of their special military operation to liberate the Ukrainian people from the grip of neo-Nazis. The world by now knew better than to believe a word of it. The evidence, from eyewitness accounts to the gruesome photographs of the dead, painted a very different picture. This was a deliberate attack on civilians, a callous act of terror designed to break the spirit of the Ukrainian people. It was a tactic straight out of the Russian playbook, one they had used to devastating effect in Syria and elsewhere. The timing of the attack, just days after the latest round of peace talks in Istanbul, only added to the sense of outrage and betrayal. The talks, the first direct negotiations between Russia and Ukraine in over a year, had offered a glimmer of hope, however faint. The two sides had agreed to a prisoner exchange, a small but significant step towards rebuilding trust. There was even talk of a possible meeting between Zelenskyy and Putin. The drone strike, with its brutal finality, shattered those hopes like glass. The road ahead for Ukraine seemed as bleak as the smoke-filled sky above the smoldering wreckage of the bus. The war, now in its 3rd year, had already claimed tens of thousands of lives and displaced millions more. Cities lay in ruins, the economy was in tatters, and the fabric of society had been ripped apart. The drone strike, with its cold-blooded brutality, served as a stark reminder that the worst was perhaps yet to come. Yet, even in the face of such unimaginable suffering, the spirit of the Ukrainian people remained unbroken. They had endured so much, lost so much, yet their resolve never wavered. They continued to fight for their freedom, for their right to determine their own destiny, with a courage and determination that inspired the world. The international community, so often divided and hesitant to act, seemed to be finally waking up to the reality of the situation. The drone strike, with its horrific imagery and undeniable targeting of civilians, had galvanized public opinion like never before. The calls for tougher sanctions, for more military aid to Ukraine, grew louder with each passing day. Whether these words would translate into meaningful action remained to be seen. The world watched and waited, holding its breath, hoping against hope that the fragile flame of peace, so brutally extinguished in a dawn attack on a civilian bus, could somehow be rekindled. For the sake of Ukraine, for the sake of humanity, it had to be.